I'd like to talk to my classmates today about family vegetable gardens and give you a few things to consider about why it may be a good idea to begin gardening with your family. In the middle of the summer in 2021, I went up to Willow Spring, North Carolina with my husband and toddler to spend some time with my in-laws. I didn't have to wonder what we would do together or what to talk about. Upon our arrival, my mother-in-law boasted that her vegetable garden was doing so well that she would have to send us home with some squash, but the crop was so plentiful that she needed help to harvest it. We changed into shorts and a t-shirt, grabbed some buckets, and went out to the heat to see what we could gather. Our eyes fell upon a small tree, branches drooping with blue and purple bunches of berries. "Your husband planted that in the yard more than 10 years ago," my mother-in-law smiled. "Every year I have to harvest it 2 or 3 times. We spent over an hour picking fat, juicy blueberries from the tree, and my toddler ate them right out of the buckets as we worked, wobbling around our feet and signing, "More, more." In preparation for starting a small family farm, I have begun to pay close attention to all issues surrounding gardening, food production, and ecology during my natural science studies here at Craven. I have learned some very concerning things about our nation's food farming practices, as well as experienced firsthand the results of relying on corporations to supply my food. I have learned that there are many reasons besides tradition that a family might choose to start a garden. I would encourage you today to dwell on the wisdom of taking control over some aspects of your family's food source. Many Americans depend on infrastructure and mass production of food to supply their family. But the American lifestyle of supermarket shopping supplied by industrial farming is a luxury that we may not always have. Rising food costs, supply chain issues, and unsustainable farming practices threaten the delicate infrastructure of mass food production and distribution. In addition, industrial farming has a lot of potential points of failure, such as groundwater and soil depletion. Food prices have risen 5.4% in 2021. The rising food prices create a substantial financial burden for many families. Unfortunately, large-scale industrial farming has contributed significantly to groundwater level depletion throughout the United States, with the depletion rate averaging almost 25 cubic kilometers per year of net loss of groundwater supplies since 2008. Industrial farming also contributes to mass soil depletion. Soils are like a savings account that give and take nutrients to plants, but it's expensive for industrial farmers to plant huge fields of cover crops that protect and nourish the soil, only to till those crops into the soil as added organic material. On a mass scale, this means that the soil is deprived year after year of important nutrients without more nutrients being deposited into the soil. Eventually, the soil becomes too infertile to yield good crops. Many families struggle to enjoy time together in a constructive and creative way. Each of us lives such busy and different lives, and there are times that being a part of a family can feel like having a bunch of roommates who you love but don't have anything in common with. It can be hard to find something to do together that is creative, productive, and enjoyable. So in this world where infrastructure of mass-produced food is becoming less realistic, less sustainable, and more exorbitant in price, and a world where families struggle to find common ground as they navigate their busy schedules, a small patch of earth is a potential game changer. So let's discuss how gardening together can provide a solution for some of these challenges. Starting a garden has many practical uses. It teaches your family about growing and producing food in a hands-on way. Any knowledge that your family can add to their mental toolbox gives you a head start in a food shortage or famine situation. The knowledge and experience that you cultivate now could protect your family in the future. Family gardening also provides you with the option of using more sustainable and environmentally beneficial practices. For example, instead of using city water or pumping fresh water from a well, you have the option of using rainwater or gray water to irrigate your garden. Starting a garden also puts the health of your food, your family, and your soil in your hands. You can choose what chemicals touch your plants and mingle with your soil and which chemicals you don't trust. You can have an organic garden, a no-dig garden, a year-round garden with cover crops, a food forest, a vertical garden, or any other kind of food growing system. There's a lot of options and lots of ways to explore family food production. Gardening puts you at the helm of food production for your family, so you can take charge of your health and the health of your household and your land. Hippocrates said, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." Starting a garden will also help your family connect. It gives you common ground and many opportunities for social and spiritual growth together. It will also teach all family members how to learn together, solve problems as a team, and celebrate victories. Parents and spouses can spend time connecting as they work together, discussing the garden's issues and finding creative solutions to problems. They can build a new common interest. At first, it may feel like only work, but as you begin to make progress together in your gardening endeavors, you may find yourself looking forwards to going home and putting your hands in the dirt more than doing less productive things like watching television. Children can also become involved and benefit from a family garden. Hardy.com recommends helping children become involved in the process by allowing them to pick out the plants they want to grow and eat. Children usually lack a natural willingness to do chores and work because they are impulsive, lack judgment, and they're absorbed in themselves and their own world. But having a garden provides a training ground where those childish traits can be weeded out. As children grow, they can learn to pull weeds from a garden, prune vines, and harvest fruit. This nourishes their judgment and independence, as well as teaching them how their actions affect the whole family. So you can envision your garden as a training ground for empowering your family to produce food, a way for you to take charge of your family's health, a great way to connect as a team, and an opportunity for training good characteristics into your children. Let's take a moment to visualize how these things can affect your family as a whole. When a bowl of salad is placed on the table, has the lettuce or tomatoes from your family's garden, and those who gather around the table help to cultivate what is placed before them, there is nothing like that feeling. Each member of the family feels gratefulness and pride for what sits before them. Each member feels needed and important because the food they consume is quite literally the fruits of their labor. The relationship between your family and their food changes as they take responsibility for it. And the satisfaction of growing and earning your food is just as satisfying as the meal itself. Let's also take a moment to recognize that growing your own food can affect your family's finances. Now, I know that gardening is not a cheap hobby, but with careful planning and thrifty, well-researched practices, your family could save money on groceries and potentially spend less time in the store as well. As you envision what gardening could look like for your family, keep in mind the effect it could have on your eating habits, your attitudes towards food, and your self-sufficiency. This spring, I encourage you to consider creating a family garden in some form. If you don't own your own land to garden on, you may want to try container gardening or adopting a plot at a community garden. If starting a garden seems like too much of a time investment, then I encourage you to just start with a couple of tomato plants or a small herb garden. Even these little gardens can introduce you to the world of food production and give you an opportunity to enjoy a richer connection to your food. Starting small is also an excellent option if expense or land ownership is a barrier to you. If you absolutely can't put plants on your porch or dig a garden patch, you could consider a few hanging plants that will stay out of reach of hungry rabbits and curious cats. But on the subject of land ownership, I would like to make sure that my classmates are informed that a more serious garden is still possible for those living in an apartment or a rented home where digging up the yard is not an option. Craven County has many community gardens. The most inclusive is the Newbern Parks and Recreation Community Garden on Cypress Street behind the Cedar Grove Cemetery. At this garden, you can register for a plot for a fee of $25 and garden from February through December. You can register online at newbernmc.gov under the Parks and Recreation Department tab. Some other community garden options include the Riverbend Organic Garden, the West Newbern Presbyterian Church Community Garden, and the Veterans Employment Base Camp and Organic Garden. In summary, having a garden plot is one way that you can fight back against unsustainable industrial farming practices and protect your family from future food shortages. It can also become a cherished activity that your family enjoys together. It helps your children to practice good judgment and cultivate maturity, and gives your entire family a healthy, personal connection to their food. I encourage you to take action this spring in any way that you can, whether that be a small container garden or a more ambitious plot. This past summer, after we helped my mother-in-law harvest her garden, we all retreated inside and made several jars of sweet blueberry jam together. My mother-in-law's persistent dedication to her garden often brings us together in this way. I remember helping her put up her tomato cages before a family trip in the spring and filling buckets of sweet yellow squash to share with our family and friends. I want nothing more than for my family to nourish this common ground that we have found. In a few weeks, I hope to move onto a small tract of land so that our family can start our own homesteading journey. I look forward to warm summers teaching my son how to prune and weed the garden, and happy busy autumns with my parents and in-laws canning the harvest for the winter. Like most Americans, I don't have any professional training or experience in agriculture. However, I aspire to share the learning process, the responsibilities, and the pride of harvest with my family. I hope that this will be the spring that you and your family will dig in and begin your gardening journey. In anything that you do, good luck and God bless your efforts.